Hi guys, Identity here from FuelSkill.com with a basic strategy guide and deck building guide on Clash Royale. Playing this game since some time on my mobile, having a blast, and can't help it but to share my opinion, my experience with you guys to help you out a little bit. So, Clash Royale is a game where you have two players fighting against each other. They do this by summoning units from their deck, which you can of course prepare pre-game and try to destroy the opponent's tower and eventually his keep if you can reach it. So your deck contains 8 cards, and in the battlefield, on the battlefield while you're playing against someone, you have access to 4 of those cards plus 1. Every time you cast a unit, of course, this card will be replenished with the preview card which you have on the bottom left. If you're trying to build up a deck for Clash Royale, there is one most important rule which I would like to give you on the way. Always build your deck around a certain combination. Like, for example, this combination should be 2, maximum 3 units in your deck which you can execute. And the rest of the game is literally setting the trap to be able to execute your combo in a way that it is most efficient. Like, for example, there's this combo Giant and the Balloon thing. That's quite powerful. My personal favorite currently is the Goblin Barrel, the Freeze, and the Goblin Spear Throwers, whatever they're called. And that works really nice. So try always to play in a way to have your combo in mind. And of course, all the other cards need to be kind of complementary to your deck, so you have a good defense against as much as possible till you can execute your combo for maximum benefit. So the main goal for competitive players in Clash Royale is not to lose points. You want to advance in each arena to go to the next arena. So of course, winning is awesome, but winning will more often not be possible currently. Like, there will always be decks which will outperform or simply counter your personal deck if you realize that there are specific units in the opponent deck, and you just, you can't have an unlimited number of units in your own deck. So there will be units which you will have trouble dealing with. In such cases, just go for not losing, and that's pretty much the best way you can achieve winning most of the time if you're not losing. It sounds a little bit very, very like, but it's something you need to put in your head actively. So don't always force yourself to go always for the winning, because that won't be possible. You need to remember that your deck always cycles through in battle. So when you cast one unit, this unit won't appear directly again for your use. And literally, you can pretty much plan ahead what your opponent has in his lineup by triggering certain spells. For example, if you have a deck combo which has a lot of low health, also quantity instead of quality, you need to trigger his AoE effects in order to be able to use your units most effectively. Otherwise, he can counter you and hurt you. But with his tactics, with a little bit of awareness, you pretty much know what he has in his hand, and you will get a feeling for this. Which leaves me to another very important aspect, which is the mana curve, or the amount of mana you have in each battle. Your ideal goal is to create a gap between the mana resources you have and what your opponent can use in this moment. If you're using your units more effective and he counters with units which are ineffective, he loses more mana and you will have more mana to spend on him, and he will start getting into trouble catching up with defending against the units. But always remember that the towers are damage sponges, damage sponges, and they do damage. So if you're sending a wave into his direction and this wave will be destroyed by his tower, he suddenly gains an advantage because he will now have more mana. He didn't need any mana to defend against you and now can use his mana to push really hard into you. Keep this always in mind and use your towers. It doesn't matter if your tower has 1% health left at the end of the battle or 100. It counts is in the end who destroyed more towers or who got closer to the victory. Oh, I just mentioned it in the wrong context. Mana curve is another term which is very important while building decks, and that I think, I'm not sure if it's originated from Hearthstone or from Magic the Gathering. However, it's a term which means that your deck needs to be balanced in its units cost. So taking only high quality, very expensive unit will most likely not yield any positive results, as your mana will just not be able to catch up to counter whatever he's sending along your way. Mana will regenerate at a certain pace throughout the game. In early stages of the game, it will regenerate slowly. Later stages in the end, final game, it will regenerate double, very fast, which brings us to the early game and to the late game definition. The early game is per se process or time where you get to know your opponent. You see his lineup and you need to focus to see what exactly does he have, what is he throwing against you, so you can counter it most efficiently. This is what we talked earlier about, the creating the mana gap. Mana gap is, maybe that's a good term to use. The mana gap between you, so you can cast more powerful units or more quantity, more units than he can defend, hopefully, and of course makes a final push. The game itself usually is always won by two strategies. The one is a big wave, which is like you accumulated a lot of units and sending them towards your enemy and hoping that this wave will just push through, or a sudden flank attack. I think those are actually the only categories which there are, and that's something you just should always think of, that this is possible. There are certain units which can do certain things better, certain things worse, but I think that's pretty easy to figure out. And of course, we will have in future more videos on specific strategies and of course how to counter specific unit types. The game itself, from my opinion so far, is pretty well designed, and it seems to be not a pay-to-win game. Of course, people who invest some money will strive ahead faster in progress in Clash Royale, but in the end, your strategy, if you have a good strategy, you will beat someone who has a better units, as long as you know a little bit what you're doing and at least unlocked a little bit of units, common till rare. I think those are the most important, and that's pretty realistic to do, as the shop gives you the opportunity to buy those units with gold. So make sure you are very stingy with your gold spendings. Try to figure out which units and which strategies are useful for yourself, for your playstyle, and only upgrade those units. Don't waste your gold. You will need it for sure in order to compete in later stages. And of course, don't try to rush through the levels. Take your time, learn the experience, because if you upgrade all kinds of units and you get a high levels and you have quite a mess, you're not experienced which units to use. Your units will be weaker because you're spread your gold on everything. So those are really important aspects. I'm Identity from Phil with Skill. As I mentioned earlier, like, subscribe, and of course dislike if I did something wrong. And tell me please in the comments. I would love to know which combo you guys prefer in Clash Royale and which are your favorite units.
Cause winners